Hey guys, today we're in the book of 1 Kings chapter 10. So now that the temple is done, the palace is done, and Solomon has fleets going all around the world, getting him gold and treasures. Now we truly see the wisdom of Solomon. We see the wisdom because the world has heard about the wisdom of Solomon. Not just the money, not just the expanse of the palace and the temple, but they've heard about the wisdom and the growth of Solomon. And this causes the world to come to Solomon. And I think that speaks a lot to his wisdom, that when the world, which is full of negative news, hears and has to see for their own eyes the wisdom of this man of God, this leader of Israel, it truly does tell us how wise Solomon truly was. And so we see in chapter 10 that there's the queen of Sheba. Sheba is the southern part of Arabia. It's now today the country of Yemen. And so it's just that southern kind of peninsula point. And so the queen of Yemen hears of this and says that she came to test him. She came to see how wise he really was. She had lots of questions and lots of needs, and she wanted to see if Solomon could answer that. And so we see it says Solomon answered all of her questions, and there was nothing hidden from the king that he could not explain to her. And when, not only in the wisdom, but when she saw the palace and the temple, it says that there was no more breath in her. You can imagine a queen of another country who has lived in luxury her whole life now comes to Jerusalem and sees Solomon, sees the money, sees the temple, sees the house, that even though she truly knows what luxury is, she has no idea what luxury is. And she's just blown back. She's aghast on how smart, but also the money and the opulence that King Solomon has. She says she couldn't believe. She's heard of it, but she couldn't believe it. And notice that in verse 8, it says that she even blesses the Lord. She blesses the Lord, not her Lord. She would have served other idols, other gods, but she blesses the Lord because she knows that the Lord has blessed Solomon in such a way that it is unusual. And so she says this blessing, "Blessed be the Lord who's delighted in you, set you on the throne, because the Lord loved Israel forever. He has made you king, that you may execute justice and righteousness." And then she gave him 120 talents of gold. Once again, yesterday we talked about that. 120 talents is $270 million. So that's how aghast she was. She came and gave him even more gold. Not only gold, but she gave him spices. Being from the southern tip of Arabia, she's there on the Red Sea, she's there on the Indian Ocean, she's closer to Africa. There's a lot of trade routes going in and around the southern part of Arabia. So she had a lot of spices, and she brought the spices, and even tells us never again came such an abundance of spices. Never again was there ever such a trade, which is pretty amazing idea on how much spices that she brought. Not only that, we see that King Solomon gave to Queen Sheba all that she desired. And so we don't know what that is. A lot of rumors, a lot of talking that goes through that. History tells us that Queen Sheba wanted a child from King Solomon, and King Solomon gave her a child. And so she went away pregnant, and that her son was born and became king of what we would call today the king of Africa. Now, that's not biblical history, that's just world history, and there's really not much proof to prove that, except hearsay, but that just kind of tells you what what she wanted, right? She didn't necessarily want gold. She brought him $270 million. She has the money. She has the spices. So what could she possibly want? And so it would make sense that she would want an heir of Solomon, that her son might be as wise and as rich as Solomon. But we don't know that to be true, so we can't say that. Then the rest of the chapter is an amazing chapter. It just tells us about really how great God has blessed Solomon. It tells us about his wealth and his wisdom. Notice it says that the weight of gold, verse 14, that came in Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents. Now, when I know you read that, you read 666 talents and you think, oh man. Remember, Revelation hasn't been written yet, okay? So it just happens to be an amount. I don't think there's anything significant there linking us to the book of Revelation in the mark of the beast. But if we do the calculations, and I did the calculations this morning, 666 talents is about $1.37 billion worth of money. That was in 1 year. 1 year, that's what he got just from gold, 1.37 billion, but that wasn't all. That was the beginning of what he made. In verse 15, it says, besides that, which came from the explorers and from the businesses of the merchants and from all the kings of the West and the governors of the land. So it would be easy to think he made $2 billion a year. So it just tells you the vastness of the riches of Solomon, right? Think about what he spent on his palace. Think about what he spent on the temple and all the things that went in that, things that we've already read, which is an amazing. But now that's almost nothing to what he's making now, right? And this is just showing us the blessings of God, right? He's doing well. He's doing good. God is blessing him, doing exactly what it says. King Solomon made 200 shields of beaten gold, and then he made 300 shields of beaten gold. It takes about $60 million to make those 500 shields, and those shields never went to war. They actually lined his hallway to show that Solomon was a great warrior, even though he wasn't. He didn't really do that. God just gave him everything. But that just shows you the opulence in which he lived, right? He made 500 shields that never went to war because gold is too heavy and it's too soft. But it was just a decoration piece. It was, as people came into his palace, they would see all of these huge golden shields and they would be like, wow, this is amazing. And that's what he did, right? Just blew money every which way. He had an ivory throne. He overlaid it with gold. All the King Solomon's drinking vessels were gold. Notice it says none were silver. Silver was considered nothing, right? This tells you that not just for Solomon, but for all of Israel, just the economic boom that happened under Solomon. We'll see later that says that silver was like stones. Silver in Jerusalem was like gravel. It was nothing. That's how opulent and how rich Jerusalem has become of this. Not only that, he had a fleet of ships in Tarshish, which is up by Tyre, by where King Hiram is. And they would sail around every couple years, bringing him gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Notice this, thus King Solomon excelled all the kings of the earth in riches and in wisdom, and the whole earth sought the presence of wisdom. This is an amazing point because it tells us, one, King Solomon was the richest and the wisest king in the world, exactly what God had promised. So that's a good thing. The second thing is that God not only gave him wisdom and gold just to bless him, though he did, he gave him all of this for what? For a reason. What was the reason? That every king, every governor, every person that was a person wanted to come to Jerusalem. They wanted to come to see King Solomon. And so here in a place where Israel is supposed to be going into the world telling them about God, God is bringing the world to Israel. They're coming in to see King Solomon. They're coming to hear King Solomon talk about God and how God has blessed them. They're coming to see not only the palace of Solomon, but the temple temple that he built for the one true God, Yahweh. And so this is kind of like all of the lost world coming to your church. It's an amazing place to be. It's easy to evangelize when everybody's coming to you. And so God has blessed Solomon, and he's bringing the world to literally to Jerusalem, to the place in which the Messiah will be born. And so you turn the pages of your Bible, a couple pages, and we get to about 1,000 years later. We're going to have the Messiah born outside of Jerusalem. He's going to be born in Israel. And so though 1,000 years goes by, the world still knows Israel. And so we see a lot of places, we see a lot of people on TV, on Discovery Channel and History Channel say things that, well, Israel is never mentioned. There's no proof of Israel. And that's a lie. Israel is mentioned throughout all of things. I can take you, show you pictures when we went to Egypt. They're engraved in the sides of temples, inside of Karnak, inside of stones, inside of grills, and so many things. But we see this in other cultures outside of Egypt. A lot of these Canaanite cultures referred to Israel as a nation, as a country, and some of them refer to these economic booms, especially this one of Solomon. And so it's just an amazing kind of point that the world was coming to Israel to learn about Israel, not because they wanted God, not because they wanted to know Israel. They wanted to see the richest and the wisest, and that was because God led them there. Remember, God is always working things for His kingdom, for the betterment, and that's exactly what is happening. And so Solomon builds an army. It says that he builds chariots, he builds horses, and what's interesting is verse 28. He says the imported horses from Egypt and from Ku. Ku is what we would call Sicilia. It's modern day Turkey. And so he's importing horses from the north and the south. We find out in the last verse of chapter 10 that he was exporting and importing these, not for himself, but he was importing them for other kings, for the Hittites, and the kings of Syria. Why does it say that? Well, we've read in Deuteronomy chapter 17, God told Israel that if they were to have a king, that king should never build his horses. God did not want Israel to depend on a king or an army. He wanted them to depend on Him. God is the army that Israel needs, not horses, chariots, and spears and bows. And so here, Solomon being the wisest, though he's kind of breaking Deuteronomy chapter 17 by importing and exporting horses, he might be getting around that, saying, I'm not doing that for my means, I'm doing that for other people. But what is happening is he's building up the armies of people around him, of Syria, of the Hittites, of some of these Canaanite nations who will merge together to create things. And this will be a problem, maybe not for Solomon, but this will be a problem for Israel in a very, very near future. And so Solomon, though he is wise, he is showing his opulence and his nature to get and to have and to receive and import and export all goods. And so what he is doing to build relations with other countries will turn around and bite Israel in the very, very near future. Hope that makes a little bit more sense, and we will see you tomorrow in chapter 11. God bless.